Hello, everybody. This is John Duane, partner with BrookBridge Private Wealth in affiliation with LPL Financial. And thank you for joining me for what's going to be a terrific webinar. 'Tis the season, a discussion on giving and donor advised funds. I couldn't be more thrilled or better suited to have with me today the fantastic Shannon Coffey. Shannon is president of the Southeast Region of The Signatry and will lead us in this amazing discussion. Shannon, how are you?
Thanks for having me, John. I am great. How are you?
Doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. 'Tis the season of giving and being jolly. It seems like we always talk about giving around this time of year. Shannon, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Signatry, for whom you are president of the Southeast region.
Thanks, John. Yep. Well, it is the season. It's Q4, and it's no matter how we try to get ahead of it, it just seems like this is just the best time to start figuring out what we're going to get off our balance sheet to offset things. And I have spent most of my adult life practicing law. So before I came to the Signatry, I lived most of my legal career in courtrooms, litigation, really anything involving children. That's child custody, child support, divorce, parenting time, adoptions. And that was a long time. And I'm in my 5th year now at the Signatry, living in this wonderful world I call the generosity space, which has been quite rewarding. So I came to the Signatry. Actually, our chief legal officer is kind of local in the same, or was our chief legal officer in this jurisdiction. I'm in the Carolinas. And so I came onto the legal team several years ago, primarily to work on what we call non-cash gifts or non-liquid assets, when folks and donors are able to gift or leverage a piece of their business or a piece of real estate or any appreciating asset that is not cash. They can use some of that or all of it for the purposes of giving. And so, that requires some legal work. And that's how I kind of migrated into the Signatry world. And now I'm on the relationship management side, which is more forward facing with donors and helping kind of walk them through the non-cash giving process.
Okay. Tell us briefly about the Signatry for those who aren't familiar with it.
Sure. The Signatry is a donor advised fund sponsor at its core, but I think that that's limiting because there are so many different arms to it and options and opportunities. And obviously, to whatever degree you or the donor wants to participate in it, the benefits are vast, or you can just use it as a tool for generosity. But it is a charitable giving tool that helps donors repurpose their tax dollars to get them to the charities, churches, or ministries or nonprofits that they want to support.
So that's a fantastic overview. Now, you said that your role on a daily basis is working with families and potential donors around their giving strategy. So you're every day having conversations with folks who are looking to get there. So what do you find to be the main motivating factor for folks when they're engaging in a giving program? And I could lead the witness with some suggestions, but I'd be curious, just because you're dealing with it every day, what do you see as being the main motivating factors for folks that are putting a giving program in place?
Yes, that's a good question. Well, there's a whole continuum. So some people come in for the purpose of offsetting a large taxable event that they need to do more charitable giving for. And this is a great place to start that process and put your funds to be able to gift to many places over time. Or, there's people who it really, the charitable tax benefits may not matter as much. They are generous in nature, but most of the people using the fund, John, are philanthropic or charitable and generous to some degree, because they're using this fund for the purposes of giving. You can't put assets into the Signatry's giving fund and then not give them away to a church, charity, or 501c3 nonprofit. So, I think a lot of the incentives are, okay, we're generous. We want to be generous. I think all of us, I hope so. If you're listening to this podcast, you want to be, or you want to help your clients be more generous. And then along with that, there are great tax benefits affiliated with leveraging non-cash assets or giving, certain ways that allow for a greater tax liability reduction and being able to give more away and multiplying your giving. So
if I hear you right, it sounds like you have folks, it seems like you don't have folks coming to you strictly for the tax benefits. It seems like everybody at least has some inclination to be charitable and generous.
yes,
Yes, ish.
yes. I mean, there are people that are purely that, some people may come in for the purpose of only getting the dollars, off their balance sheet. And that's fine because somewhere along the way, they get to go be generous with it. And then some people are coming in. We had somebody who gave 75% of their family business for 2025. It's amazing. So it varies on the continuum.
For those of you scoring along at home, Shannon gave us 2 new words, generable and charitable. I love those.
I don't remember saying charitous.
I'm going to
Generous and charitable.
I'm going to work those into my conversations from now on. So Shannon, when you're dealing with folks, are there any barriers to becoming donors? Do folks hit any walls or obstacles in their efforts to be generable and charitable?
So right now, there are no at the Signatry, at least. I told you this before. We have a teenager, and we opened a fund for her as a gift one year, and she puts her Dunkin' Donuts paycheck, pieces of that into her charitable giving account. And so we want her to be able to be generous and learn how to use this fund wisely, even from a young age. So the grants at the Signatry, you can't make a grant out that's less than $100, but you can make charitable contributions in. And so that's kind of on one side of the spectrum. And then on the other side, we are equipped to be able to receive large, complex business interests, S corporations, any type of larger non-cash asset is also, we are capable of receiving it, but sometimes there is timeline restrictions. And I would say probably the most common one, John, would be when a donor is in the process of wanting to sell their business or real estate. And they have kind of gone too far along the line of signing a purchase sale agreement, already negotiating the sales price and having those contractual obligations underway. So sometimes there are time frame restrictions that we just they come a little bit too late. But that's why we do these kind of things, to be able to help and educate and show.
To get ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever find, because I know you work with a lot of folks in the professional community, do you ever find that a client or donor's advisors might give different advice or guidance that ever gets in the way of giving? I mean, I can't imagine a scenario, but maybe you see that?
Yes, we do actually, which is why it is abundantly helpful to both the donor and everybody that's on these tax teams, because we're not giving a tax advice or legal advice for that matter to any of the donors. Really this is a benefit for them and a tool that they can use to for all the reasons that I said previously. But really, sometimes there are people that just haven't utilized the benefits of using a donor advised fund, especially with the Signatry before. And so they'll say, well, we'll just go ahead and sell the business, and then we'll give out of the proceeds of the business. No, bad, not good. So we like to at least work with these folks ahead of time, whether it's your CPA or your tax advisor or your CFP or your attorney, whoever is helping the donors along the way. I don't think anybody on a donor's tax team wants to rob them of the ability to receive a higher deduction and give away more. So it's just a matter of connecting and sophistication.
But you used a good phrase, which is tax team, right? Clients for the most part have teams. And we want to make sure that we're aligned with their professional providers and not looking like we're coming in and undoing what could be a decade-long fantastic relationship. We want to make sure that we're all aligned, I think.
That's correct. That's correct. And sometimes, it might be that the asset should sell and they can give out of the sales proceeds. That may end up being the answer, but at least knowing what the options are to be able to help the donors have the opportunity to know what opportunities there are.
Time to interject. We've used the phrase donor advised fund a few times, and I have great confidence that the folks that are joining us today have some familiarity with that structure. But for those that don't, can you tell us briefly of what a donor advised fund is?
Sure. It is a charitable giving tool that donors can use for the purpose of giving to multiple charities. I love this story because my husband and I did not know what a donor advised fund was before we came to the Signatry. And think of it like a bucket, like a charitable bucket, and you can do all of your giving out of this bucket. We used to give out of our checking account, and we would write checks or scan like the QR codes at a fundraiser or a church or something, and it would come out of our post-tax dollars after we've paid for life, and W-2 payroll goes in there and it's diluted. What's in our checking account is our leftovers. And so what this fund allows people to do is put assets and cash and stock and real estate and business interest and crypto and anything that is an appreciating asset that we can receive. You can take things that you normally can't go give to a ministry, for example, or a nonprofit, and you can put them into a donor advised fund and get more out to the ministry. So you can leverage resources and assets, not just cash. But I like this option because for the DAF, because we have one tax receipt at the end of the year and we give to a lot of places, John. So at the very minimum, it's a streamlined giving experience, and you're not having to go track down all your tax receipts at the end of the year. So that's for us personally, it has really allowed us giving. We know that we give out of our DAF. So we look at it and we see how it's grown, we see what's in there, and we still contribute to it and receive deductions when we contribute to it. But it's like a charitable giving fund.
Right. Actually, so a couple of things there. You touched on what sounds like one of the advantages of it, which is a single line of reporting for a donor's giving, if I hear you right.
Yes. So like I had think of it as a bucket kind of, and you can put assets into the bucket, you can put cash into the bucket, you can put stock into the bucket, you can put some of your crypto, Bitcoin, you name it. And if you have a piece of real estate, you can take a piece of that real estate pre-sale, depending on all of these have to certainly meet certain requirements too. But the most common thing that we generally see is businesses before they sell. The donor will take a piece of, if it's an LLC, will take a certain number of units of their LLC and transfer those pre-sale into their donor advised fund at the Signatry, receive the income tax deduction for the full fair market value of the units that were gifted into the fund pre-sale, so that when it sells, those capital gains dollars that you're otherwise going to pay get to go into your charitable giving. So you get those captured for your deduction and you can go give them away. Same thing for real estate.
Yeah, and to be very specific for folks that might not be aware, if there is a $100,000 contribution, as an example, to a donor advised fund, that does not mean that at the end of the year there is a zero balance because you went to the donor advised fund and then you gave $20,000 to 5 different charities. In fact, you could put in, as an example, $100,000 and give $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 to your charities. That money can continue to grow and you can continue to distribute that money year after year. And then, as Shannon said, you have the ability to make additional contributions in subsequent years to the donor advised fund.
That's correct. So you have people using this as an ongoing kind of life planning tool, estate planning tool, family legacy tool. I mean, really, it's an account that allows you to have asset. I mean, you can go ahead and give it all away. You could give that $100,000 right away if you wanted to. But I think what I see a lot of is, okay, let's go give 50 away now, and then let's take that other 50 and let's create a place where we're not having to tap into our leftovers in the checking account so that we can have an engine that allows us to give more and is working for us within the circle of our charitable giving account. So you can do a lot of creative things to multiply your giving.
I'm
And
gonna throw Shannon a curveball. We rehearse this, but Shannon, I want to interject. The idea of a business owner pre-sale using this as a tool, because the giving is great. We want to give and we want to support causes, but there is an effective wealth management element to it. And I want you to highlight it because you touched on it. The idea of, I have a business and, pre-evaluation is worth this, and if I sell it, it's going to be worth that, and using the donor advised fund as a strategy there. Can you go a little deeper into it?
yes, let's just start with an example because I think that's the easiest thing to hang your hat on. Let's say that you have a client, John, and they own an HVAC business, and it is structured as an S corporation, and it's been passed down through the family, and now we're in end of generation 2, and they are going to sell. It's time to sell. They have several places that they want to support. And right now they're considering, okay, we know we're going to sell this for $10 million. We want to give $10 million away. If we sell it for 10 million, we're going to need to sell it for 10 million, but we're not going to keep 10 million to give away. We're only going to keep 750, maybe 78, 7.8, right? It depends on but you're looking at between 20 to 25% ish. These are rough numbers. If you were to sell it and then the cash goes into the hands of the person or the owners, and then they go and give away we'll call it 7.7, right? You can go away and give away 7.7, and the ministry or the nonprofit, that's great. And you get a 7.7 deduction. That's all great, except, is that the best way? No. A better way to consider, is if you were to take that S corporation and transfer the shares of the S corp into your donor advised fund at the Signatry. That's what the non-cash process is. And our job is to reduce the complexities and make it not so complicated and scary. And I don't really know about all that, so I'll just give it on my checking account. So we take the complexities out for the donor and we put the shares of whatever amount they want to give. In this example, it's 100%. So you can take 10 million in, you get a $10 million deduction, and then you can go give all of it away, minus your appraisal costs. There are things that you have to, there are fees and appraisal costs, but the strategy still makes sense for the donor because of the amount of capital gain that they're going to pay anyway. So essentially what you're doing is you're repurposing your tax dollars to get it into your deduction number and get it out to the charity that you want to support. Does that answer your question?
Enough business owners, the obvious answer is no, but do you think enough business owners take advantage of this strategy?
I wish there were more. We do have a lot of business owners using the fund. We do. There is a lot of people. And what's funny, John, is a lot of people, once they realize that they can do this, and it is a wiser way to steward the LLC before they sell it, we'll have people do this again. And, you get these serial entrepreneurs who build a business up and they sell it. They flip their real estate. There's secondary. Sorry.
You have a lot of business owners who use it, but relative to the percentage of business owners who have the ability to use it, I would venture a guess that it's probably quite small. We should be doing more.
That's right. They should.
So you mentioned a few times the Signatry. So we talked about giving, we talked about donor advised fund giving broadly speaking, but the Signatry is the donor advised fund for whom you work with clients. Share with us specifically some background on the Signatry, what it is, what makes it different, certainly from a mission perspective, and then we'll get into some of the actual capabilities that might be different. But broadly speaking first, tell us about the Signatry and some differences from a mission perspective.
Well, the Signatry's mission and vision is to inspire and facilitate radical acts of biblical generosity for generations. So there is a faith-based element to the Signatry that I think is what it draws a lot of people to the Signatry. That doesn't mean that you can only grant out to places that are only Christian. There are plenty of wonderful secular places doing great work, and you can go and grant to a myriad of nonprofits at the Signatry out of your donor advised fund. But I do think with respect to generosity and being charitable, most of the people that are using the fund want to be partnered with an organization that shares their values and wants to carry those values on for their children and their grandchildren. You know, you can use these tools as a succession planning option for your family and estate planning opportunities. And so I think a lot of people, you know, they want to know that it's not just us, it's our kids and grandkids that are in alignment with where we want to be partnered with for our generosity. So I think that is a big piece of the
Yep.
individuals and the types of people that want to use the Signatry. And there is a statement of faith, but beyond that, there's so many other options for donors that are just very beneficial. Once you kind of get in and start using the fund, you realize, wow, okay, I can take some of these assets and use them in a way that frees up other pieces of my portfolio and this is where I think the financial advisors are really utilizing this resource as a place to help their clientele, because the business owners are busy running their businesses and people are busy doing what they're doing. And so they're relying a lot on the advice of the professionals. So I think as a resource for financial advisors in particular, you can take a piece of your portfolio and put it into your donor advised fund, get the deduction, like I said before, for the fair market value of what you contribute in, and there's no limit. You can keep doing that over and over again, or you can do it once and you can grow the funds in your donor advised fund. Your advisor can grow them. We have a section called the advisor managed account section. You can invest out of your donor advised fund into certain other for-profit entities as a medium through which you can multiply your charitable giving. So there's just a lot of really creative ways to utilize the funds to be able to make it last for the charities you want to support and your children and grandchildren.
Let me jump in there because I want to specify an element that you touched on. So for those that don't know, money goes into a donor advised fund in this particular instance we're talking about the Signatry, has the ability to be invested in portfolios or investments that grow over the course of time and then be directed to charities out of the donor advised fund, in this case, the Signatry. So money goes in, theoretically it grows, and then the donor says, give, as an example, $5,000 to XYZ charity. So that's the basic mechanical flow. And then the point that Shannon makes as it becomes to the mission element is if that bucket, as you called it, the donor advised fund, if that institution is one that's working in areas or supporting certain causes that a donor might not be on board with, then a donor is going to say, well, I don't really want to put my money in XYZ donor advised fund because of some of the work that bucket company does. And so the element that you're referring to here with the Signatry is a donor advised fund that aligns with certain causes and missions that allows donors to maybe be free of that conflict or disapproval of where another donor advised fund company might be engaging, broadly speaking, right?
Yes, we didn't talk about this previously, but we do have a team that vets I shouldn't want to say the vet, but they look into the charities to which certain donors may, if there's a new charity, got to make sure that it's properly registered and legally cleared and isn't, some person in their basement taking charitable dollars, right? So, or maybe there's kind of a process through which charities are screened to make sure that there's proper recipients. And some of that is also in alignment with our statement of faith. But that doesn't mean that you have to only be, that doesn't mean that it has to be a Christian place. So we can talk about that another day, but.
You are, every day you're working with donors and potential donors, and you see a lot of scenarios and do a lot of good work, quite frankly, of securing donations for the Signatry Donor Advised Fund. Is there something that you worked on recently that sticks out to you, or something that you worked on historically that was kind of unique that sticks out to you that you might share as a real example of something that you did?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Just this year, I've had the pleasure and benefit of working with several families. One family was able to gift a piece of real estate that had no debt. And they were able to gift a large value piece of real estate, and they put a percentage of this piece of real estate into the donor advised fund before they sold it. And then they sold it and received the deduction for the fair market value of the percentage that they gifted. And then now their donor advised fund is funded and they are using it the way it should be used. They're giving away and they're also growing it. So one of the means through which they can grow it is the alternative investment option, which is where, and we've seen a large uptick in this opportunity. And so I would encourage you as an advisor and any advisors that are listening to consider the opportunities of using your donor advised fund for multiplying your giving longer term through the alternative investment option, which is when you can come and say, Shannon, or come to the Signatry and you can bring a business to us and say, I want to invest in this for-profit entity out of my donor advised fund. Now we have places that are also pre-screened that have been, our business team is able to already look at the return, and these are good places that you can choose because they're already on our list. And you can bring them to a donor can say, I want to invest out of my fund into this type of an entity. And when those returns on, just like a person would, John. So just like you can out of pocket go invest in a real estate investment opportunity out of pocket, you can also, your donor advised fund at the Signatry can also be an investor. And certainly there's boundaries on that too, and we'll look at it. But for the most part, you can use the fund as an investment tool, and then the return on those investment opportunities go back into your charitable giving, and they have to be given away. But what that does is create a synergy, an engine for the donor to have something feeding and multiplying their giving over time. So every time that business does well, their donor advised fund is funded and the charity gets more. And these create long-term giving opportunities that donors frees them up for the rest of their portfolio over here. So they're not touching their post-tax dollars because their investment opportunities here are doing the giving. So just really neat, creative ways that are innovative for giving options.
So before I get to, we were fortunate to have several pre-submitted questions. Before I get to the pre-submitted questions, what unique asset you remember taking into the Signatry Donor Advised Fund?
Recently we had a family who is just, every time I get to work with these people, I'm moved. Wonderful family, and they had a family business. I don't want to say too much in a public forum, but they were for the purpose of generosity, because they care so much about giving and they understand that you can't take it to heaven with you. And
Right.
so they gifted 75% of this family business, 75%, John. And it was not small. So I was moved by their hearts and their stories. I mean, that's just the first one off the top of my head, but there's some interesting, there's some interesting types of, it doesn't really matter what it is. Honestly, I was thinking about this too. There's just a, a farm with cattle grazing on the property, and the tenants are paying X per month in rental, right? I guess you could think of it as like rental income, and gifting a piece of that. Right now, there is no statute of limitations on the amount of time that a piece of real estate can be in the Signatry DAF or a donor advised fund. And so you got people giving portions of their beach house or their lake house or their farm or their ranch where tenants are paying rental income. And you can put the real estate into your fund, get the deduction at the time of the contribution, and then the rental income can feed your donor advised fund over time. So every time that the rental income comes in, it goes into that donor advised fund and out to the ministries or the church or the nonprofits that people want to support. So it's just, the whole continuum of creative ways that people are using it is really neat.
I appreciate the cattle grazing example. It was very moving what I did there.
You're funny, John.
And every now and then, so as I mentioned, we were fortunate to have some pre-submitted questions that I want to make sure that we cover. Question number one, broadly speaking, how can not-for-profits help their donors learn about donor-advised funds in general? And I think this contributor means the existence of donor-advised funds as a vehicle.
That is a great resource. Click on our resource tab. There's a nonprofit resources link under on the Signatry's website. Go to signatry.com, click on the resources link, and there's a nonprofit link. And there's some PDFs and videos that you can watch there specifically responsive to that question. But I would say in general, knowing about these opportunities, obviously the development directors they can't know and don't know all the details, and it's not their job to know the logistics and mechanics of how this works. But they do need to know enough to go, oh, okay, there's a donor who has a rental property. Maybe and have relationships with donors who have multi-family housing complexes or own apartment complexes, or maybe that they own a business. What's the plan for the business? What do they want to do with it? If they knew that they could use their tax dollars to give more to the nonprofit that you are the development team for, would that interest them? I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. And so just bringing it to the attention of the donors throughout your personal relationships with them is great credibility for the nonprofits. I think it brings competence and credibility and trust. So I had a development director actually contact me recently and say, look, I don't know how this works. I don't know anything. I just remember hearing you say on some like gala or something where you were speaking, if you
Shannon was making the rounds.
What now?
I said when you were making the rounds. Go ahead.
I mean, to some degree, they learned that this is possible, but they don't have to know the details. They just knew enough to call and say, hey, I got a guy who has rental properties in this state, and he's trying to give them to the nonprofit. We're not really set up to manage them or transfer the leases, but the Signatry is. And so, I mean, we're not going to manage the property, but we can transfer leases. It's basically meeting with the donor and finding out, okay, what does this person want to do? And figuring out a way to do it if we can. If we can't do it, then we won't do it. But it's so donor specific, John, that really the magic happens when the development director or the nonprofit personnel kind of gets us all together. And that's just a matter of reading the room and relationships on their end. But I think that's responsive. Yeah.
To the individual that submitted that question, I'll make sure that we get that material to you. Second question was logistically. So actually, it looks like logistically, how does someone literally make a gift of real assets to a donor advised fund?
We'll start with a business So if you have your candy shop LLC, I love using this as an example. If you have your candy shop LLC, and let's say, John and, let's say the donor and the donor's spouse own the candy shop LLC together, and they want to gift it, or a portion of it before they sell. That's an easy example. And there's the units of the LLC that they want to gift. We would meet with them and I'd say, what do you want to do? Well, we want to give 50% of this before we sell it. That's great. So what we will do is take 50% of the units of the LLC, and we have to know who the owners are. And I won't go into all of the other type of due diligence details, but there are certain scrubs that we've got a legal team, a tax team, a finance team. And so once we meet with the donor, we will give them some due diligence. We'll go and look at precisely what the governing documents of that LLC or the business is, and take the units and transfer ownership of the units into their donor advised fund, so that pre-sale, we'll call it the husband and the wife, own 50%. And after the transfer, their donor advised fund owns the other 50%. So when it goes to sell, it's like having 2 or 3 owners. Your donor advised fund is one of the owners of the units of the LLC that you gifted pre-sale. Same thing for real estate, except we're transferring the deed into your donor advised fund. So if you own a beach house that you want to sell, or you just want to gift it and use it like the rental income example I just gave, you can take and transfer for 50% of the ownership of the real estate into your donor advised fund. So when it goes to listing, it's you as the owner of portion, and then your donor advised fund is the other portion. You both go to listing. So you are gifting ownership. It is an irrevocable gift into a 501c3 structure. We are a 501c3. So just like you would be getting a deduction if you gave into a charity, this is a public charity. It's a public charity that helps a lot of other public charities, and it's a fund where you can do a lot of other things with the assets once they're in the fund.
Gotcha. Okay. Can a donor advised fund be used for a 1031 exchange?
That's a great question. And we do have people asking about 1031s, and I will say for the first rounds of a 1031, you're doing a 1031 exchange for the purpose of reducing your tax burden and avoiding those capital gains each time you are turning over like-kind property, investment properties, right? So usually what we see is at the tail end, after a great example is 4 kids at different colleges. So one kid goes to Florida State and you bought a rental house there, and a bunch of kids rented it while child 1 was in school. And then your next kid goes to Chapel Hill. So you do a 1031 into this Chapel Hill, and there's 7 girls living and renting this Chapel Hill house. Next kid. So by the time the 4th kid graduates, there's a substantial amount of dollars coming out when you sell, or you're going to sell that 4th like-kind property. And so usually that's when people will put it into their donor advised fund, gift it, or deed a portion of it into the DAF before they
end of the process now.
Just like any other piece of real estate. But we do get that question a lot. So that's a great question. And yes, I mean, it wouldn't make sense at the beginning. Maybe it would. I don't know. It depends on what the whole tax picture is. But usually the most common is on the tail end of those 1031 exchanges before the final sell of the largest piece of property or the most expensive one you want to avoid, and repurpose it for charity.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Shannon, as we begin to close up, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on or highlight that we didn't cover along the way? I just want to make sure that we hit everything that was important. Shannon touched on her notes. I should think of a quick joke, but I don't have any.
Well, you've already made jokes about my mispronunciation at the beginning when I was nervous. So I'll say this. the alternative investment portion of what you can do at the Signatry that is a differentiator from what you can't from other donor advised fund sponsors. I am aware that this alternative investment piece is greatly beneficial to donors who are looking for a longer term strategy to bless their children and grandchildren and beyond, to create long-term giving, regular quarterly, monthly drips. So when you look at, sometimes you look at charities or pass by college or ministry or I don't know, and go, how is this place, how are they so well funded? Like, what are they doing that is so that they're able to know what they're getting every month? You know, a lot of these places are in a scarcity mindset because they're getting one-time gifts, and that's great. But how do you plan? And this is how a lot of nonprofits that are thriving are able to really enjoy sustaining long term, is when you have someone with a donor advised fund that can use the fund for investment purposes into a business. And usually the business is somebody who also wants to support and cares about the same causes or wants to champion the same causes. You can invest in these entities that give a return, and the return goes into your donor advised fund and out to the charity, and into the donor advised fund and out to the charity. And what it does, John, is it creates a really a plannable, regular stream of revenue for the charities to be able to not spend all their time fundraising and actually do the charitable mission that their purpose is. So I think that is something that, if you can just get ahead of it and think a little more sophisticated about the way that you want to do your giving, you can really free up your touching of the checking account, which is where, in a very small scale, my husband and I have really reaped the benefits of that and just seen our giving multiply. We don't have luxury apartment complexes all over the country, but a lot of people may have a portfolio. So by taking a piece of your portfolio and letting your advisor manage that and keep it growing in your donor advised fund, you can give out of the growth of that. I know last year Nvidia stock went way up. So watching, you can look and see, just like you can on any account, you can see your fund grow, and then you can go give it away when it grows. Same thing for real estate. There's no time frame right now on the amount of time that you can run rental properties through your donor advised fund and allow the rental income to feed the charities, thereby freeing you up from touching your post-tax dollars. And that's the crux of it.
Okay. So as we wrap up, 'tis the season. Shannon, if we had to leave everybody with one thought, or there was a takeaway, is there anything in particular that you would like to make sure everyone walks away from today's presentation with?
Thanks for asking. I would say we joke that friends don't let friends, sell then give, because you're missing out.
Don't let friends sell then give.
That's right. That's right. And I'll just say this, regardless of where your heart is, or whether you're using this option and strategy for purely financial reasons, there is something mysterious and beneficial that happens. And we say that generosity begets generosity. My husband and I are living proof of it. We used to, I hate to say this, but I'm going to, because I think other people can identify with this. I used to open up like fundraising letters or go to a gala or something and be like, what is the least amount that we can give without appearing like we are cheap or don't care? Because we were giving out of our diluted post-tax dollars. That was our leftovers in our checking account. Now we have a fund, and we know that whatever we give out, we just look at our fund and go, this is how much we have to give. So we can give all of it, we can give some of it, but it has really allowed us to be more strategic, more generous, and I think make greater impact. And it blesses us because we have relationships with a lot of the charities that we support now. So to whatever degree you are on that like spectrum of generosity, I would really encourage you to consider the ways, like, why is it that the happiest people are the most generous?
Why are the happiest people the most generous? You just gave us the wrap-up line. So Shannon, thank you so much. We were joined by Shannon Coffey, President of the Southeast Region of the Signatry. I want to thank our clients, our potential clients, our friends, our professional partners, and everyone who was able to join us today. My name is Duane, partner with BrookBridge Private Wealth, and I want to thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. Tis the season for giving. Thanks so much. Take care.